Friday the 13th is here, and for slasher fans, it means a night of scary movies. But for some, this date represents a real challenge. According to Dr. Donald Dozy, a psychotherapist specializing in the treatment of phobias, nearly 21 million people believe that Friday the 13th really brings bad luck. And many of those people won't venture out of their homes today. But where did the fear of this date begin? To find out, we're joined by Sweetbriar professor Kathy, say your last name for me, would you?
Gutierrez.
Gutierrez. Now, tell us a little bit about your background and how all of this became of interest to you.
Well, I work a lot on particularly American religions and certainly the history of the occult. And so places where belief sort of bleeds into fear and concerns about evil and bad luck, that's it's perennially interesting, and every college student loves to talk about it.
That's a very good point. And this fascinates me too, because it really sounds like in a lot of ways, nobody really knows where this came from, but there's a lot of different places it seems to have.
Yes, generally people put this right around Jesus' time, and with the idea that there were 13 people at the Last Supper, which really led to a very, very long and lasting belief that if you had 13 dinner guests, that one of them would die within the year.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's terrible.
And that hung on straight through the 19th century, really, really hard. And then, of course, there's the concern about the crucifixion taking place on Friday, right, Good Friday. So these two fears seem to have run concurrently, but they didn't actually get mushed together until just about the 20th century, when the two of them sort of got brought together in this idea about Friday the 13th, which was sort of, quadrupling the impact of each individual fear.
And there's a lot of information out there about this, and there is some belief that people do kind of freak themselves out, and there's more car accidents and things like that. Why do you think we let this get to us?
In many ways, our fears do become our realities, right? And if you are, all anxious about something, then you're a worse driver. And it just becomes, fiction becomes fact in so many cases.
And what about other origins of Friday the 13th? Do you know any other places that in history where you've seen this fear begin?
Well, there's a lot of speculation about the number 13 is like the witch's Sabbath, or the addition of the trickster god Loki. He's not an evil guy, but he's a trickster. It's his job to shake things up and be bratty. But this goes as far back, although we're not entirely certain what this means, but the Babylonians wrote the first code of law in the West called the Hammurabi Code, and it enumerates various laws, and it skips the number 13. Just skips it. 12,
Fascinating.
15. Precisely. And we don't know what that means, whether there was, it could just be an error, but it seems a little striking.
There's also some things that I've read that it says that 13 represents femininity, and that somehow represents a negative thing, and having to do with menstrual cycles, and it's just fascinating all the different kind of things they come up with.
Right. Oh, sure. And then once the ball starts rolling, it accumulates everything in its path, right? But yeah, sure. Lunar cycles, and 13 months on a lunar cycle with the moon, and various concerns about Friday the 13th with the full moon. That's the absolute worst, of course, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. And then, of course, we have, for the slasher fans out there, Jason.
Of course, Jason. Jason actually comes by his fame quite honestly. There was a group of, they called themselves the 13 Club, and they were started in the late 1880s in America. And actually 5 of our American presidents were members of the 13 Club. And they set out to debunk this superstition. And so they would have dinners with 13 people, and they would go do things on Friday the 13th.
Fascinating.
And they were very public, just trying to get rid of this. And one of their cohorts was a stockbroker, and he wrote this really terrible novel called Friday the 13th that he then incorporated into his brokerage. So he would try to scare people with the idea of Friday the 13th so that he could manipulate the stock market on that day.
Fascinating.
So once again, right, it's like fear becomes reality, and it's still the case that people don't play the stock market on Friday the 13th. So this idea of art becoming true, right? So yeah, Freddie comes by it. Jason, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Jason comes by it very honestly in terms of art and Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm. And I actually have to go. That's some information about your book. So if folks are interested in checking it out, you can go to Amazon.com. And we'll be right back. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.